Hi, I'm James Hamilton from Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal, and today we're going to cut through the nonsense so you can figure out if the router you have is the right one for you. Next to the table saw, the router is the most important tool in the modern workshop. I suspect the old-timey woodworkers may have passed on some of the fancy jigs and tools today's woodworkers use, but they would have given their left walnut for a good router. With one you can do everything from cutting fancy profiles to precise joinery. If you don't have a good router, you need to get one. In the notes below, I placed a couple links for specific ones I recommend. Just click on Show More if you're on YouTube. But this video isn't about brands as much as it is helping to clear up the confusion about which features are really useful and what's just a bunch of hype. So let's get started. Fixed base routers are more compact. They're usually lighter and they have handles mounted near the base. This lowers the center of gravity, making them easier to balance on the edge of a workpiece. They're also less expensive than the more complex plunging models, and a fixed base router is often easier to mount upside down in a router table. On the other hand, there's no denying the benefits that come with that plunging mechanism, especially if you're starting or stopping a cut away from the edge of a workpiece. If you're cutting a deep mortise, a plunge router may also be better suited for removing material in stages so that you don't hog out too much at a time. And a plunge router's depth stop is often fitted with a fine micro adjuster, making it easy to dial in that perfect cut. If you could only have one router though, I think I would suggest going with the plunge router. With it, you can do just about everything you could do with a fixed base model, if a bit more awkwardly at times. And that plunging action is just a game changer in some situations. Some routers come with what's called EVS, Electronic Variable Speed, and that's an essential feature in my opinion. If you plan on using large router bits, you just have to have the ability to slow the tool's spindle speed if you're going to work safely. Even small bits can benefit from slower speeds when routing certain materials that burn easily. In the last few years, many routers equipped with EVS also have another feature called soft start. Rather than jumping from 0 to 22,000 RPM the instant you hit that switch, a soft start motor takes 2 or 3 seconds to ramp up. This dramatically reduces the sudden torque on the motor, which can be hard on the bearings and on your wrists. Another feature found in some EVS-equipped routers is an integrated feedback system, which keeps the bit at a constant speed. For example, if your bit enters an area of denser grain, the motor gets just a little bit of boost of power so that it can keep its speed consistent and give you a consistent finish. In my opinion, it's worth buying a new router if the one you have doesn't have at least a basic variable speed feature. That's that little dial on the side. You may try to save money by buying an aftermarket speed control device that attaches on the cord, but the additional features that are common to modern EVS-equipped routers, such as that soft start and feedback monitoring, make an actual new upgrade well worthwhile. Router power ratings can be confusing, even misleading. For example, how can your little router be rated at 3 horsepower when your giant table saw motor is only 1.5 horses? It's because induction motors on big machines are rated for their continuous horsepower, while your brush-type router motor is rated for its peak horsepower. Your router might be capable of 3 horsepower, but only for a few seconds at a time. See what I mean by misleading? So some people look at amperage ratings, but those can be confusing as well. They're intended to tell you how much current you can pump through that router without burning it up. The idea is the more juice you can safely run through the tool, the more oomph the motor will have. But some manufacturers slap inflated ratings on their tools to make you think they're more powerful than they are. Fortunately, there's an organization called Underwriters Laboratory that rates motors by testing how many amps or watts they can draw continually rather than just for a few seconds. So when you're buying a power tool like a router, look for the UL amperage rating. The higher that rating is, the more power your tool has. You can even convert the UL amp rating into horsepower by multiplying it by the volts you're using, usually 110 here in the US, and dividing it by 746. Now once you figure out how powerful your router really is, how much power do you really need? I suggest at least 11 amps for a handheld router. 12 amps are better, especially for heavier cuts in hardwoods, and the extra weight of a 12 amp motor compared to an 11 amp will help to reduce vibration, and you're going to get a little bit cleaner cut. I own a big 15 amp, 3.5 horsepower router, but these are overkill for most weekend woodworkers, unless you're going to mount it in a table and use large bits to make raised panels. And if you're doing that, it probably wouldn't be a plunge router anyway, you just get the big motor and put it in a router lift. Whenever I can, I buy router bits with a 1/2 inch shaft. They vibrate less, and the extra circumference around the shaft gives you 4 times the surface area for the collet to grip. The extra metal also dissipates heat faster, and cooler bits stay sharp longer. Not all bits are available in 1/2 inch shafts, but most routers that will accept a 1/2 inch bit will also accept a 1/4 inch bit with an included adapter. So buy one that will take 1/2 inch, and you can use it for 1/4 inch as well. When purchasing your bits, always buy 1/2 inch whenever possible, and buy the 1/4 inch ones when that's all that's available for specific tasks. In a perfect world, we would have a different router for every bit, but routers are expensive, so here are my recommendations. First, get a good 11 or 12 amp plunge router, 12 if you can. This will be your everyday user for both handheld and table-mounted tasks. Look for one with an easy-to-adjust, micro-adjustable depth stop. If possible, test the springs before you buy it. Make sure that plunge mechanism works smoothly. There's nothing worse than a sticky plunge mechanism. Look for one with variable speed and soft start. And buy the most reliable brand you can afford. This will be your workhorse for many, many years. It pays to spend a little extra. In time, you should also get a fixed base router to permanently mount in the router table so you don't have to fuss with swapping this one in and out. Or better yet, look for a router set that comes with both plunge and fixed bases. You can leave the fixed base in your router table and just pop the motor out and into your plunge base when you got to work handheld. You could even buy a second fixed base separately for the times when you need that lower center of gravity handheld, as we discussed later. One router, multiple bases, gives you a lot of versatility for a lot less money. Eventually, you may want to also add a compact trim router. This is used for your light duty tasks where you need finer detail and it's just easier to control the smaller router. A few brands offer these with plunge bases. This is fantastic, but it costs quite a bit more. So if your budget doesn't allow for the plunge base, buy the trim router without it, but choose a brand that has a plunge base option. That way you can upgrade should you choose to down the road. It pays to think ahead. Again, I'll put links to the models I prefer in the notes below. But if you want to do your own shopping, I hope this tutorial has cleared up some of the confusion so you can spend your tool dollars wisely. For more great tips, tricks, and tutorials designed to make you a better woodworker, check out Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal. You can read and subscribe for free at stumpynubs.com. Happy routing!